Hello, everyone, and welcome. We're going to get started in just a minute. Hello, and welcome, everyone. We're going to get started in just a minute. While we're waiting, if you want to say hello in the chat box, let us know where you're joining us from. While you're saying hello in the chat box, make sure you're sending that to all panelists and attendees so everybody can see. All right. Seeing some New Hampshire, some Arkansas, Missouri, Puerto Rico, Texas, North Carolina. Welcome, everyone in Washington and Montana, South Carolina and New Jersey. Hello, everyone. Welcome. We're saying hello in the chat box right now. We have a pretty packed schedule, so we're going to go ahead and get started. I will say that this webinar is being recorded, and a link to the recording and the slides will be made available on our website. If you have any questions for our panel as we're going along, please put those in the Q&A box. We'd love for you to interact with your fellow attendees in the chat box, but if you have a question that you want asked and answered live, please put those into the Q&A box. We'll also have some other opportunities for folks to continue the conversation. We have a Padlet, it's almost like a message board that we'll be sharing the link to. And then on Friday, we're having open office hours where you can come by and chat with some of our presenters and your fellow attendees and maybe brainstorm a little bit about the plans that you're working on for this summer. All right, so with that, I will turn things over to Aaron.
Hey. Thank you, Leslie, and thank you to everyone who is joining us for day 3 of our summer planning boot camp. We're really honored and thrilled that you've joined us. The first 2 days have been amazing, and I expect today will be as well. We have a lot to cover. We have great presenters and partners and speakers. Just want to also acknowledge that today's sessions are being sponsored by the Mott Foundation, an amazing partner and leader for the out-of-school time and education field, and you're going to hear from them shortly about some great resources they have. Also, our co-presenters for today are the National After School Association and Every Hour Counts. Also amazing organizations and partners for all of us. If you're not familiar with them, please encourage you to go to their website, check out their events and resources. But today we're talking about scenario planning, operations, and partnerships. And look, a lot is changing day to day, and we've all been dealing with it up till now. And there's a lot that will change that will give us different scenarios that we need to prepare for in this coming summer. This is a doers meeting. This is for those who are really focused on working and serving youth across the country. And so whatever you need, we want you to know that NSLA and all the partners and folks who are speaking today are here for you. You're not alone, and we're here to help you make the most of this coming summer. We go to the next slide. So NSLA, I'm not going to spend too much time. Just know that we've been around for more than 25 years and focused on putting a spotlight on what works in summer and making sure the summer is not the most inequitable time in all of education, but also turns into one of the greatest opportunities for young people in education. So all of you are making that happen, and we'll talk about how we do that. Next slide. Again, we're very focused, like all of you, in closing the achievement and opportunity gaps and combating what has been referred to as summer learning loss and now COVID learning loss, but really doing it from a strengths-based and asset-based approach. So really we're focused on the gains of summer, not just what we could lose, but what we can gain and all the potential we have if we leverage it correctly. Next slide. If you listen to me, I always talk about these points, but these are more for you. And people say, why do we care about summer? We think summer is a great time to improve, not just for young people, but for adults as well. It's a time to innovate, incubate new ideas, test them out before you scale them during the school year. It's a time to break down silos in education and work with partners that you might not have had time to work with, but once you do, you can carry on those partnerships throughout the school year. And it's also a time to have immediate and lasting impact on young people, not just for the summer months in what the program experience is, but also at a national level, all of us collectively. And I will flag later this afternoon, after these first 2 hours, we have a 3rd hour bonus hour, like the Today Show, if you will, where we're going to be meeting with Senator Michael Bennet and Senator Chris Murphy to talk about how to increase federal funding for summer and after school programs. So this is a conversation that matters to individual lives of young people, but also to the nature and the future of our country. Next slide. We have big events coming up that we'll want to keep you involved with, and opportunities to stay connected to our work through our National Summer Learning Week in July, also our national conference, which we're going to stay hopeful could still somehow be in person in November. Next slide. And we have lots of resources. These are the resources from day one, day two resources, and you're going to get all of these next week in one big nice email, so you don't have to run and scramble. And then you'll be getting some more resources today as well. And you can see some of them here, whether it's from Springboard or from different handbooks from some of our partners today. So we'll go through these as we go on. Next slide. And then just again, to make sure that people feel part of a community, one of the things we've launched this year is a professional summer learning community on all these different topics. We have some of our trained facilitators leading groups quarterly who care more deeply about these topics or these settings, where they're working with young people, and you can read the list from health to public housing to literacy and libraries, arts, college access, youth employment, special populations, even outdoor programs in the environment. So a lot for NSLA to work with you, not just this week, but all year round. Next slide. And then we have our field consultants. And so on Friday, we're going to be making them available for anyone who wants to have smaller, intimate conversations and has questions, and they want to get some coaching and ask advice and talk to some peers. They're going to be facilitating meetings on Friday, which we'll talk about. But again, if you have training or you want some more support, we could cover these topics and do more and tailor specific trainings for you. We do this regularly around the country. So just know it's another thing that we offer. Next slide. All right, now I'm going to turn it over to our friends at the Mott Foundation, Carrie and James.
Great, thanks, Aaron. And hi, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, depending on where you are located. We are delighted to be joining you today at the National Summer Learning Bootcamp. The Mott Foundation believes so strongly in the power of high quality after school and summer learning opportunities for all youth. We all know, every single one of us on this call, that when young people attend after school and summer learning programs, they are better prepared for work and life. As we all continue to navigate these challenging times, providing engaging learning opportunities is more important than ever for young people, their families, and communities. So today, we are excited to share a resource to support you and your work. Mizzen by Mott is a mobile app that puts high quality educational content and program tools directly into the hands of you, after school and summer learning educators. And to tell us more, I would like to introduce James Hall, who is the User Acquisition and Engagement Lead for Mizzen. James?
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you, Carrie, for that introduction. I'm so excited to be here today to talk about Mizzen, and I just wanted to start by just thanking all of you for your passion and dedication to developing our youth to be the best they can be. Your work really matters. So let's get started. Next slide. Here's the topics we'll be covering quickly today. A short intro to the story of Mizzen, what's new and what's coming soon to the Mizzen app, and how to connect with Mizzen on our website, blog, and social media. Next slide. So to start off, we're going to start with a short video overview of the app. Next slide.
The life-changing work of educating young people has never been more important. Educators and those who support them know that after-school programs are key to inspiring and engaging young people today and as they look to the future. Mizzen by Mott can help. Mizzen provides age-appropriate content so you can easily find captivating, engaging activities in STEM, arts, and literacy, and so much more. To meet the needs of this moment, Mizzen also offers activities that can be done at home or in small group settings to support and nurture learning wherever children are. Mizzen also provides tools for scheduling, organizing, and communicating with your team. Another key feature is Pro Tips, which provides fresh ideas, news, and advice from industry experts. Mizzen is dedicated to those who want to inspire young people to love learning. And through support from the Mott Foundation, it's completely free. Download Mizzen today.
Thank you. All right, next slide. I hope you all enjoyed that video. Now let's take a few steps back. It all started with a question from Ridgway White, the Mott Foundation's president. How can we leverage technology for after-school programs? So we went straight to the source. We spoke to teachers, service providers on the front lines of after-school programs across the country. After our initial conversations, it was clear that Mott was onto something here. We definitely saw a need and created a 4-step process to fill this need. We needed to identify what does the sector need, define the solution, define the audience, and then design and build the solution. Next slide. The app is designed specifically for the after-school field leaders, the real boots on the ground, making a difference in the lives of students like everyone here today. Next slide. I think we all could agree our youth get a lot of screen time in this day and age, but Mizzen's quality content is not about creating more screen time for kids. Mizzen sparks hands-on learning. Next slide, please. Mizzen by Mott saves time and money for after-school programs by making it convenient to find great, free, high-quality content in one place. But we also simplify the day-to-day and help programs function more efficiently by managing their groups and rosters and scheduling activities in advance. Mizzen also puts best practices at your program's fingertips by supporting professional development. All of this functionality is built right into the app. Next slide. Mizzen Groups helps you organize students into specific cohorts. So you know what groups are scheduled on what days and assign teachers and activities to a group. Mizzen Groups also has a simple attendance taking feature. Next slide. Scheduling made easy. Use the calendar and scheduling to keep track of what activities you have scheduled for your students and groups. High quality content. There is good content out there, but it can be difficult to find. Most people are searching Pinterest or Googling subjects to find content for their classes. We're doing two things. We're sourcing and creating the best content out there, and then making it incredibly easy to find so that you can present to your students. Content providers you can trust. So we offer over 1,000 pieces of content that foster learning and well-being through activities in arts, STEM, literacy, digital media, and entrepreneurship. The content is sourced from the country's foremost content providers that include NASA, Jazz at Lincoln Center, California Academy of Science, Oregon Ask, Youth Quest, Venture Lab, and the list keeps growing. Now instructors can choose and deliver content they trust in a much more organized and efficient way. Professional growth for summer. It came up in almost every conversation with frontline staff. After-school instructors always want to be the best they can be for their kids. Pro tips written by after-school professionals and leaders in the field provide solutions and strategy to maximize their effectiveness and how they deliver curriculum and deal with classroom challenges. Use these tips to keep your staff on a consistent path to growth as you gear up for summer. So that completes our brief overview. Next up, we want to share with you what's new and what's coming soon in the Mizzen by Mott app. So we recently released an activities playlist curated by winners of the Excellence in Summer Learning Founders Award and Climate Change Award. These activities, such as making comics, which is part of a series, and carbon cycle role play, can encourage creativity and engage students in STEM learning throughout the summer. Mizzen is always releasing new updates, features, and content to the app. We've just added the ability for individuals to create an account without having to be a part of an organization. We have exciting new entrepreneurial content from NIFTY, the Network for Teaching Entrepreneurship. Last month, we created a playlist of 10 activities exploring Black history to keep social justice and DEI at the center of learning year-round. STEM Next and NASA have included several new engaging STEM activities that will excite and inform. And to meet the needs of this moment during the pandemic, the Mizzen team has added new activity playlists and multi-week modules that can be done at home or in small group settings. The team has also added activity playlists that especially focus on kids' well-being and social emotional learning, like relaxing yoga, games, and mindfulness, health and wellness for families, play and physical exercise. All can be done in programs or at home. And our latest content release comes from KidGrid with 6 SEL-focused activities like Stop the Madness that shows students how to differentiate real news from fake news online. Next slide. And finally, we have a new playlist focused on reading releasing next week, new environmental and music content coming in April, and new STEM content from NASA coming this summer. Slide. You can connect with Mizzen on all of the listed social media accounts or visit our website by going to www.mizzen.org, where you can create an account, log in, or subscribe to our blog. You can also download the app on Google Play and the Apple App Store. And we can't forget, Mizzen is free, all through support from the Charles Stewart Mott Foundation. And that concludes my portion. I'm going to drop some links if anyone wants to check out into the chat box right now. And thank you all. And I hope you found this useful.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Carrie, James, and the Mott Foundation. We want everyone here to have as many resources at their fingertips as they can as they're planning their programs. And this is a great resource for our field. So thank you so much. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Broderick Clark, who is our Director of Technical Assistance at NSLA, one of our longtime field consultants, and a youth development expert. And he's going to be moderating our first panel. So Broderick.
I appreciate that. I appreciate the opportunity to be here with everyone today and to have the privilege to moderate this discussion. As Aaron said, my name is Broderick Clark, Director of Training and Technical Assistance with the National Summer Learning Association. And before I do that, I just have to send a quick shout out to everybody that's in the chat. A lot of gratitude for folks in the chat. If you look at the chat, it's kind of like walking through the hallways of a conference and seeing colleagues and friends. And so shout out to Rutgers Future Scholars. Just had to shout Kim Williams and the crew down in Rutgers, as well as New York City, my hometown, and Metro Atlanta is running deep in the chat box. So you get an opportunity to go check that out. And so we have a powerhouse crew of presenters here today that's going to give us some guidance with respect to planning. I know that for myself, if I'm planning activities for summer, there are a couple of things that I carry with me. So thanks to the Weicker Center for providing that Preparing Youth to Thrive, the Thrive Guide. And of course, we're talking about summer, and we know when summer planning starts, right? It starts in September, no doubt. So I dive into my summer planning guide. And then thanks to our friends at Mott, I can now rock with the Mizzen app at no cost to me and my organization. So starting with those 3 resources is a great way to begin that planning process. And then of course, today in our boot camp, we have Jennifer Peck, President and CEO of Partnership for Children and Youth. We have Chris Smith, President and Executive Director of Boston After School and Beyond, and Laura Zahn, founder and CEO of Generation Teach. All will be sharing some thoughts, and we'll moderate a discussion on the back end of that. So starting with Jennifer, we'd love to hear your thoughts.
Thanks, Broderick, and thanks to NSLA for inviting me to be here today. Good morning to everybody in the West. Good afternoon to everybody in the other time zones. So I'm gonna be relatively brief because I actually think the voices of folks who are doing this more at the local level are are somewhat more applicable around the operations and planning piece, but I really want to spend a few minutes on talking about some of the things I think are really important to be happening from the state level, which is the place where we sit. So we are a statewide intermediary in California. We focus on expanding access to quality expanded learning programs after school and summer for high need students across our state. And we ran a campaign called Summer Matters for a number of years in the state of California to really zero in on the very big gap that we have had in our state around summer programming. And, you know, we made some good progress on raising awareness about summer and bringing some more public investment to summer, but that gap remains much too big, especially for a state our size and the level of need. And so, you know, we're excited about the opportunity in front of us right now with increased investments, which I'm going to talk a little bit about. And so, you know, I want to say a little bit about what I have seen as our most important jobs in this moment in supporting planning and preparation for summer as a statewide entity. The very first and most important one was around the state budget and really making sure that investments were sufficient and shaped in a way that we're going to be supportive of the kind of summer programming we need to see take place in this particular year. Our state, like many, you know, have been proposing pretty large investments in COVID relief and what we're calling learning recovery in California. And just this week, this budget deal is being finalized for over $4 billion that's actually going to go into this learning recovery bucket. And summer is a cited allowable use, which we're very excited about. And the resources are very, very flexible, which is a very good thing in a lot of ways, but it also means there's a lot of work we have to do to influence how people are utilizing this money in the ways that are based on research, based on experience, particularly when it comes to summer learning. So one of the things we're really focused on doing right now is analyzing exactly what is in this budget measure that has just been announced and making sure that our provider community across the state is really well aware of all of the details, what they can do, what they can't do, and how to be communicating with their school districts around planning and ramping up for the summer. With these big state and also federal investments coming into the system, which, you know, adding it all up, and I think this is true in a lot of places, is really going to be quite significant. We really have to make sure, especially our school systems, in addition to our program providers out there, have the tools and resources that they need for planning, especially in this very compressed timeline. Our school systems have been in a lot of chaos. And so in a typical year, we would want summer planning to begin in the fall, but nobody has really had the capacity to be thinking about it. And I think a lot of people have also really been waiting for news around funding, both from the state and federal level. So we have a compressed timeline. We have a system that is still in a lot of chaos. Here in California, we have quite a lot of school districts that still have not opened their doors on any school campuses. And if they do before the end of the year, it will be in a very limited way. And so summer is really going to be, in a lot of cases, the first time in-person programming is going to be happening for a lot of kids across our state, which I think puts additional pressure on how we're thinking about planning and preparing for the summer. So some of the things that we're doing on the planning and preparation side, and, you know, aside from some of the influence and the messaging and getting information out to people more concretely, is one is we're working on a summer planning guide, which is an updated and more thorough version of a summer scenario planning guide. We did a very rapid fire way last spring. We're doing this in partnership with National Summer Learning Association, and it's really meant to help people sort of shortcut some of their planning and give them some very concrete resources that they can use as they're bringing their partners together to plan for this summer. And that's actually going to be ready this week. I think it came out really nicely. We're super grateful to NSLA for all of their help with that. And I would also say, while we wrote this for California, everything in it is really applicable to any state. And so I'll encourage people to take a look at that when that gets released. Like I said, probably later this week. We're also doing a series of webinars for practitioners around our state that's actually really targeted to school districts and meant to be complementary to everything that NSLA is putting out. And some of the things that we're really zeroing in on in some of this planning support is around staffing, number one. It is the single biggest concern we are hearing from school districts around our state. We have a record number of teachers who are retiring this year, and the teachers who are sticking with it are not likely going to want to work this summer. We're hearing this all over the place. Teachers are tired and fatigued from the year that they have had. And so we have this sort of interesting and very challenging circumstance where we're going to have more money than ever coming into the system to fund summer programs and potentially a shortage of people to staff them. So we're really trying to help people think very creatively about staffing solutions that I know others are going to talk about a little bit in this panel, but we're talking with our state university system around recruiting pre-service teachers to be working in summer programs. We're encouraging people to think about expanding, the hiring of college students this summer who are going to need jobs. Similarly with high school students, we're encouraging people to broaden the kinds of partnerships at the local level with their park and rec agencies, with their libraries, expanding contracts with the community-based providers they may already work with, and then also talking potentially to their affordable housing partners. Our affordable housing organizations in a lot of cases already run some kind of a summer program for kids and may have the capacity to expand. So again, I think creativity is going to be the name of the game there, and really thinking more expansively about partnerships, which is a real opportunity, in my opinion, that we can capitalize on this year. We're also going to be zeroing in on helping people think about serving English language learners in particular this summer. We have a very large population of English learners in our state, and we'll be happy to share resources we develop around that. And then also around serving high school students in the summer. One of the priorities in our state funding is around credit recovery for high school students who are at risk of not graduating this year. And we're very concerned about how that might happen, and that credit recovery can feel sort of punitive and remedial. And I think for high school students this summer, they're going to be needing much more experiential opportunities to make money, opportunities for leadership as part of the theme of recovery that needs to happen. So we really want to provide as much guidance as we can around the best ways to re-engage high school students while giving them opportunities for credit recovery. And then the last thing I'm just going to say is that we're really encouraging people to think about this as at least a 2-summer planning exercise. I think we have to be very realistic about what can be done this summer, given all of the challenges in front of us. And with the federal money, the newest bucket of it can be spent through 2023 in our state. All of this learning recovery money that's coming out can be spent through September of 2022. And I suspect it's going to look like this in other states as well. We have a real opportunity to think about this as a multi-summer strategy, and we should. I think some of the partnerships we can explore this summer and how we expand how we're providing programming and with whom, we can test that out this summer and learn from it and build that into our planning much earlier for next summer. So I think that's just really important for people to keep in mind. So I will stop there and we'll look forward to the discussion.
Yeah, if I can grab just another moment of your time, thank you so much for all of that insight you provided to us just now. And we know that we have a great resource in Mott and the Mizzen app. And reflecting on their presentation earlier too, do you see some connections and linkages between what you just presented to us and that resource?
Definitely. I mean, I think anything that is going to provide shortcuts and ease of access to information and activities for people is going to be really critical this summer. I mean, we've been paying a lot of attention to the resources that the Wallace Foundation has put out from the RAND research on, ways to support effective planning for summer, one of which is to provide curriculum for people for summer. We've been reluctant to do that in the after school space as much because of our practitioners really like to create things on their own. But I do think for summer and in this very compressed time frame, whatever we can find that's already been done, that's high quality, that we can get out to people quickly is really important.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you for that. I'm sure we'll have some more questions for you on the back end of our panel here. So thank you so much. Next up, we have Chris Smith, President and Executive Director of Boston After School and Beyond. Please tell us about yourself and the great things that you have going on there in Boston, and we'd love to hear from you.
Thanks, Broderick. Good to be with you all today, thinking about summer. The sun is out in Boston, so it feels closer than it did last week. I'm going to offer 4 lessons that we've learned in our collaboration with the Boston Public Schools and a growing and diverse network of community partners over the past 10 years for how to make the entire city a classroom for a growing number of young people every year. Our role as a citywide intermediary is to coordinate, measure, and improve what our network is doing with kids. I think of NSLA and statewide groups like Jennifer's as setting the stage. And now it's up to us and our network to be the performers, to make it happen. And the way we think about it is first thinking beyond the boundaries of school, recognizing that learning can happen anywhere. It does happen everywhere. And that if we can tap the right learning environments, we can make learning relevant for young people in order to change their mindset, even a sense of their identity. And it enables us to tap the diverse expertise and resources of our community. So you'll see if you come to Boston, summer learning happens in natural spaces, in community settings, on college campuses, even at workplaces, and also in schools. The second lesson we've learned that has enabled us to grow and weather storms like the pandemic is to cultivate an intentionally diverse network. And so we try to model how different types of institutions have a role to play in learning. In a way, they're like a dotted line to the school system, whether it's a museum or a natural setting or a YMCA, Boys and Girls Club, or a small neighborhood nonprofit. Everyone has something to add. Everyone has a unique set of strengths that they can bring to the table. And when we get lots of different kinds of programs playing to their strengths as part of a coordinated and measurable system, we can have a meaningful and measurable impact. So that necessitates some coordination across programs, not just running a single good program. And one of the ways we focus on that is the third lesson, which is a focus on cross-cutting skills. If you go to any given community, you'll hear a set of specific things they're working on. In many cases, if you're a community partner, you'll face the need to improve academic performance, which frankly is even hard to pin down to a classroom and teachers, and probably unfair to hold community organizations to. So over the years, we've developed with our network and with the growing body of research, a focus on a set of skills that are essential not only to school success, but also linked to success in college and the workforce. I sometimes think of them as the interview skills. They're the things you're trying to learn about a person when you're interviewing them. For example, can they think critically and solve problems? Can they think creatively and resourcefully? Can they work well in a team in order to accomplish an objective? Can they persevere when times get tough? So we codify this in our Achieve, Connect, Thrive framework, and programs as diverse as tennis on one side of the city, to entrepreneurship, to community service, they all focus on these skills and have a lens for learning and a way to hook kids into developing these skills. And the premise is that these skills can be taught, learned, measured, and improved. And so that's what our programs focus on. It's a great meeting ground between youth development and schools. And they're called all sorts of different things depending on where you go: 21st century skills, social and emotional skills, navigational skills. They're all of that and above, but that's a big focus of what we do. And then finally, we measure and learn together. That's the fourth lesson. This has come to serve us well in so many ways. Most practically speaking, our suite of measurement tools enables programs to learn with and from one another. So everyone knows what they do relatively well and what they need to improve on. And I say that because they can compare their performance to the other 300 programs in our network. And we can draw on programs that do things particularly well. I'll give you an example of something we don't do particularly well across the board. The Common Youth Survey that we use across all 300 programs we work with shows that young people don't get enough choice and autonomy in their program. So that's something we're focused on trying to get better. We're able to identify the exemplars in that area because some programs do that well. And so that's an example of something that we are trying to seize on and improve on. Over the years, we've improved the structure and organization of programs, and the relationships have been consistently strong. And everything we measure is from multiple perspectives. So to summarize, we do an observation of programs, and we ask for the youth perspective on the program. So we get 2 data points on the quality of the programs. But the way that served us well this year is that intensive focus on measuring the very practical things that go into a high quality program has lent our network the credibility to attract funding, especially while schools have been closed. So this is something that's worth focusing on if it's meaningful to individual programs in the network, and we found that it is, in addition to conferring some credibility when it comes to informing public policy and attracting funds. And I'll just summarize by saying that we too have dealt with many of the things that Jennifer described in both summer 20 and are facing in 2021. The thing we're most proud of over the past year is that our network has actually grown. So we've attracted new organizations, many of whom are community-based, serving young people where they live in places that they can walk to. And so it's been a testament to the commitment, the resiliency, and the resourcefulness of our network. And we're looking forward to having summer 2021 be the best one yet. It's interesting, this time last year, we had all sorts of ideas when this thing might be over and when we'd be back. We had a struggle of virtual and put together some in-person opportunities. We're hoping to come back in person this year so that we can make strategic use of outdoor spaces and nature, especially to get kids outside, moving and learning with one another. I'm going to post a link to the lessons learned in the chat and turn it back to Broderick. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Chris, for your leadership. If I can keep you also for another 30 seconds or so, I appreciate all the information that you shared with us and the critical pieces that you have instituted there in what sounds like a very mature network. We're joined today by our sponsor, Mott, and this Mizzen app, this great new resource. Do you see a way to connect that to some of the initiatives you have going on in your great city?
Sorry for the pause there. Yeah, I think it's a great resource and tool to connect virtually to anywhere you want to go, actually. I mean, it takes a lot of work, as you all know, to put together a field trip or a visit just to make sure that young people have access to certain content. And I think what this app does is consolidates the world of knowledge in an accessible way where you can deliver it really efficiently with young people. And I would say an interesting use of it be to supplement an in-person experience. So you can learn about something, before you go on a field trip or before you have an in-person experience. So it's when used together, I think it can be really powerful.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate you very much. And shout out to your great city and Wellesley College for Women and National Institute on Out of School Time, Ellen and the crew. Appreciate you all for being here. So we're going to keep this panel moving and go to our last panelist, but certainly not least, Laura Zahn. Laura Zahn is the founder and CEO of Generation Teach, here to share some words with us as well.
Thank you, Broderick, and thank you all for being here in this very busy time and very challenging time. I'm with Generation Teach, and we're a national nonprofit that is committed to ending racial injustice and inequity in education. And our mission is to co-create loving communities where students and teachers and leaders learn, grow, and develop together. And I imagine that's a mission that I share with all of you who are here. We're educators and we care about summer learning because we care about our kids, we care about our teachers, we care about our leaders, and we care about changing the trajectory of our country. And we know that our investment this summer in our relationships with our children and teachers and leaders is part of making that happen. At Generation Teach, we do this with a 3-part model. We have an academy, a 6-week academy for middle school students. We have a fellowship, a summer teaching fellowship for undergraduate and high school students. So they're earning almost $3,000 while they learn to teach, learn to be young professionals, and invest in their younger peers during the summer. And we have an 8-month leadership residency for professional teachers who we are developing as the future school leaders of tomorrow. And I think the last year for all of us has been a time to have this magnifying glass. The pandemic was a magnifying glass on our society. We saw the things that have been problematic all along. The disparities, the structural racism, the systemic inequity was made widely apparent in our society. And so it was a magnifying glass on that, but it was also a magnifying glass on our organizations, because as we went through those moments of figuring out what are we going to do during the summer, and now this summer again, what are we going to do during this summer, we have the opportunity to think about how we are going to be during this time and what we are going to do. And with that lens, I would love to share with you 4 things that we have learned and really focused on at Generation Teach. And I share this as a practitioner, as someone who is very close to summer learning, who engages with the kids and the teaching fellows and the professional teachers. So I'm at the micro level of the work. And I think the first thing that we learned that was so important was that we have to live our values during this planning process and during the summer. The way we plan for this summer is the way we will be during the summer. So if we approach this intensive time of planning and thinking of everything that needs to happen with a sense of urgency and crisis and struggle, we'll be that way during the summer too. But if we ground ourselves during this time in the values that animate our organizations and really focus on living them while we plan, then we'll be in a better position to live them while we are in our program. For us, the first core value is belonging. And during a time of national crisis, belonging means making sure that our staff, our whole team, feels grounded and loved through the process of planning for the summer. Our next value is investment. We want to invest in each other and invest in everyone who's in our program by building strong relationships and really caring for one another in this time. Our third value is collaboration, which means planning for summer meant reaching out to our families back in December and saying, what are you thinking about this summer? We know your plans may change, your priorities may change, but even now, what are you thinking about for summer 2021? Because we want to collaborate with you because we have the honor of learning with and from your children. So let's collaborate on that. Another value for us is growing together. So that means there's going to be struggle, as there always is with growth, but through the process, we're going to get to a better place. And our final value is excellence. And we see that as the outcome of living our other values. And we have some practices that we use that help us live our values during times when we have overwhelming lists of things to do. And I imagine all of you have a million things to do right now, and you're probably getting pinged and getting emails while you're at this webinar. And so really thinking about what are practices we can put into place so that we live our values even when there's a lot going on can be really helpful. We have 3 that we use. One is our Monday Compass check-in. We're a team of 7, and every person on our team has 5 minutes in our Monday meeting to check in on their compass. What's going well, what's their north, what's challenging, what's the south, what's their insight, their east, and then what's their fun fact, their west. And in this way, we've stayed connected, deeply connected to one another throughout the pandemic and throughout planning. As we've talked about, we've had COVID infections on our staff. We've had 10 children on our staff of 7, ages 0 to 16, who've been out of school and in the background while we've all been doing our work. And so really sharing with one another is a way to really protect that sense of belonging and investment in each other during the pandemic. We also do appreciations every 2 months, and that's a 90-minute session where everybody on the team shares appreciations for everybody else on the team. And you all remember last March when it was like, what's going to happen next summer? We did our first virtual training, and then we took 90 minutes to appreciate each other before we started thinking about what could it look like to design a summer learning program that's completely virtual, something we've never done before and not one of us is a specialist in. And then a third strategy we use to live our values is we use committees and sprints. So we believe everyone on our team is a leader, everyone on our team is an expert, everyone on our team has as much to give as they have to learn. And so we do 2-month engagements of committees that are led by different members of our team, and we do 1-month sprints. And what this is, when we identify a challenge or a problem that we want to address, we break off into groups and we work up a solution, bring it back to the team for feedback, get feedback from the team, and then go back and work on it some more, and then bring a solution forward. And that's what we do during the summer. So as you're thinking about things you're gonna have to design for this summer, it may feel like, oh, there are so many things, but you've got different people. So tasking and then coming together to collaborate can be really helpful. A second point that we learned about working and living through the pandemic and thinking about summer programming is this is a powerful opportunity to heal our relationship with time and with our human limitations. We've done a lot of work on our team with dismantling white supremacy culture. And one of the characteristics of white supremacy culture is a sense of urgency that cuts the people closest to the issue out of the decision-making and the problem solving and the resources. And we want to be really careful to make sure we were not animated by a sense of urgency, but that we could come from a place of calm and collaboration, and that we could be connecting with the people and with each other as we moved forward. And so that takes time, and we talked a lot about how time is a construct. We always have the time to do what we need to do, and that may mean that there are things that we normally do that we're not going to do this year, or we're not going to do this spring. And one of the things that we all bring to that conversation on our teams is what's a priority now and what's not? How can we lower the temperature, lower the expectations, lower the anxiety for each other so we can do our best work together? Because ultimately, we want our organizations and our programs to be places where humans thrive. And that's the humans on our team. It's the humans who come to our program. It's the humans who are families. It's all of us together. And we have to live that value in order to share that value. The third thing that we've done a lot of is naming absolute strategies and hedging strategies so that we can prioritize in a shifting landscape. We have this really messy Google slide that we look at every single week. And this started last March and it hasn't gone away. It's called the view from here. And we divide the next few weeks into phases. And we say, what's going to be happening in the next few weeks? What's our strategy? What are our outcomes? And then it gets marked up. What do we know? What do we not know? What changed that we thought we'd know? You've all probably been through this. We thought we might know when schools are going to reopen by this point. We thought we'd know about this partnership by that point. We thought we'd have this funding decision by this point. Those things are constantly changing. But when we're all on the same page with them and we're looking at it and we're naming it and we're saying, and this is what we're going to do now and this is what we'll do later, it can be really helpful. To give a specific example, we're all thinking about what it's going to look like in person this summer.
And I don't know about you, but I read the New York Times in 1 week. I'm like, great, it's going to be amazing summer. We'll be hugging everyone. Next week I read it and we're all going to be like in a worse situation because of variants and we're not going to leave anywhere. No one's going to leave our homes. And so we're going to be all virtual. We're going to be all in person. It goes back and forth. It changes. But there are strategies that we can use regardless of what happens. So regardless of whether we're in person or whether we're virtual or whether a combination, what are things that we do now in March? When we know a little bit more, what do we do in April? When we know a little bit more, what do we do in May? So each month we are looking at this together and we're prioritizing because there are lots of priorities all the time, but our work as a team is to find our priority for now and then to support and appreciate each other in achieving that priority. And then my fourth thing, after we've lived our values, we've healed our relationship with time, and we've accepted our human limits, and we've named our absolute strategies, what we do no matter what, and our hedging strategies, what we're going to do just in case, is to become or to strengthen our identities as learning organizations. We are into summer learning because we love to learn. And we all know from our own learning processes that learning is messy. Learning is challenging. You think you've got the answer, you try it, and it doesn't work. You've come up with a program design, you implement it, and you find challenges with it. And so we name and normalize that for ourselves as a team and for all of our leaders who lead with us. Because we think that being a learning organization is critical if we want to bring people together to learn. So one of our sayings that we use is, it's not a matter of if there's going to be a problem, it's only when. And it's not a matter of how many, it's how we're going to approach them. So how can we all use this macro challenge, these macro problems that are going on, as really ripe problem solving opportunities and really powerful opportunities for us to learn together? And through all of this, we're in a time when we think as a learning organization of innovating for the future, of looking at what things can look like going forward. Because I don't know about all of you, but I don't want to go back to the way things were. I want to go forward to a world that we can create together. And we're going to be creating that together this summer with our kids. We're creating it together right now with our team. We're going to create it with our families and with our teachers and our leaders. And that world is just, that world is equitable, that world has ended racism and dismantled structural racism. It's ended white supremacy culture. And that work is the work we're doing now as we envision it and we plan it. And the way we get there is the way that we will be there.
Thank you so much, Laura, for grounding us in the humanity that's embedded in this great work that we all engaged in. I appreciate that very much. As with the two previous panelists, we had a statewide perspective on this great new tool that our partners at the Mod Foundation has put together, the Mizzen app. Chris gave us a citywide perspective, and if you can give us your perspective as a practitioner. I mean, as someone who has a file cabinet full of resources and all kinds of stuff that comes to us on the ground, you know, how do you wave through that and finally get something that you can really leverage and use? Any thoughts about the Mizzen app and how that can help with your work?
Yeah, and I loved what Jennifer and Chris said, and I loved the presentation on it. Honestly, as a practitioner, I'm looking at simplify, simplify, simplify. So that's a big part of our work. There are a billion resources, and this one is very thoughtful and intentional and streamlined. So for someone looking for a resource, it's awesome. We already have like built an LMS, and like one of the things that we focus on is really giving everyone a floor of excellence to innovate on and not give them too many things to try to figure out. So we will be using the one that we have, the one platform we have, but I think this is a great option for others. And I think the takeaway is like knowing what is simplest and most effective for the people, your population, is most important, and then keeping it simple, you know, so everyone can get into the work and not get distracted by the technology.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Thank you to all the panelists. We're going to open it up for some Q&A. I'll continue to scan the question box to see if there's some there, but I have a few that I can pose to our distinguished panel. And so we were reminded, if we have to be reminded, that we're in a COVID reality right now, and we're still trying to get everything in a row for providing much needed services to families this summer, and recognizing that things change, ebb and flow seemingly on a daily basis. And so, our focus today was around planning, and would really love to hear what have you learned about planning for summer during a pandemic. Hopefully this is the only one that we experience together. But any considerations there, and that's open for anyone, please. Feel free to unmute yourself there and let us know what have you learned about planning for summer during a pandemic? Either Jennifer, Laura, or Chris, either.
I'll just quickly say the need to be flexible, which is always true to some extent, but exceptionally true right now. And one of the things I'm really appreciating about the moment is the increased recognition of what is most important about summer in providing safe and supportive environments with caring adults for young people. And I think that is the very most important thing that we can do this summer. And I'm hoping that we can maintain a lasting focus on that, because I think it's been really valuable.
Thank you, Jennifer.
One thing I think about is our role as leaders, all of us, of like holding space for humanity, which like right now we have a very real physical threat that we can read about. But our kids and our families have lived with physical threats for generations, right, in our country. So in a way, it's externalized what may have been an abstraction for some of us, with like, what is the stress of living with that? And then thinking about how do we create resilient organizations and resilient spaces where people are loved and held through the challenges that brings. And I think it's also given us all the opportunity to be innovative in our thinking. We always know, no matter how well you plan your summer, like a bus comes late, a lunch doesn't come. Like there are always things that you have to adapt to. And so now having it be so much larger is an opportunity to name it, like, yes, another chance to practice our problem solving strategies. This is what we do. We are summer learning people. We love this. This is where it gets sweaty and exciting. We're all good with this.
Absolutely. Thank you for reminding us that we're built for times like this. I'll pose another question to the group. I'm a really big fan of language and how just a couple of words can really help to drive, what you do, how you do it, and why you do it. And so as we think about planning, what are some of your guiding principles that really carry you forward in that planning process, even to enjoy the successes of the planning process, but also to persevere through some adversity?
Yeah, I would say the trick to planning is we want to let programs be themselves and to improvise a bit, because they are closest to the people they're serving. And for us, because we have so many different kinds of organizations, that's a balancing act. So we're striving for the lightest touch possible to hold together this broad and diverse network of programs that ideally should enable everyone to shine in their own particular way. But it's very easy to overstep that. There are certain things that are required for funders and for school credit for students. So that's always fun to plan. How can we make the best use of the inputs, space, place, curriculum, staff expertise, connections, and put it together into something that will hold together across the city while enabling each program to shine.
Thank you, Chris. As someone who ran programs for a long time and many years, I can appreciate having that flexibility and just the expectation being to innovate and be creative. That is awesome. So I appreciate that. I think we have about just another minute or so left. So maybe if we can round this out with a final question for you to consider is, there are a lot of programs on this call, 335 people I see right now. Any advice that you would give for programs, just some general advice around as we all you know, think about planning and what that looks like, feels like, and sounds like for us. Any kind of guidance or tips that you would give for any of our great friends on this call or folks listening to the recording that they should consider as we think about planning for summer, aside from starting the planning in September, which of course everybody's got that by now, right?
I'm gonna pick up on a comment I saw in the chat, actually, from someone from a county office of education in California, around how we can frame summer as an important space for rebuilding and testing, and providing spaces for recovery that transition smoothly and intentionally into next school year. And I do think that's really important for us to be talking about. And I also think it is an opportunity to spur conversations at the local level about creating more intentional year-round systems of learning and support for kids. You know, when we ran our summer campaign in California, it wasn't just about filling the gap of summer. It was really trying to get our school systems to think about this as a year-round strategy so that kids can have consistent positive learning environments with a range of adults and experiences throughout the year. And it needs to be thought about as a system, not as these two separate things. So I do think that is an opportunity that we should be pushing on with our local and our state systems in the dialogue moving forward.
Thank you, Jennifer. And thanks for grabbing that comment out of the chat and the Q&A. I appreciate that. We have time for another response.
One thing that we do that can be fun is to imagine it's the end of the summer and it was amazing, or imagine it's the middle of the summer and it's incredible. And what does that look like? What does it feel like? What does it sound like? What are you seeing at the site? What are you seeing at the program? And then go through and name like what are in place that made that happen. And then we do this other exercise, which is really horrible, but really effective. That's called a pre-mortem, where you pretend like it was the worst summer ever. And you say, this summer was terrible. Like everything we imagined didn't happen. Why? How did it go poorly? Like, why did our kids stop coming? Why did our families feel unsupported? Why did teaching fellows quit? Why did our leaders hate it? And we go through, oh, well, maybe we didn't spend enough time communicating with them. Okay, so what's our communication plan? Have we reviewed that recently? Maybe we didn't do enough to build a sense of community. What's our plan for this year? Have we adapted it sufficiently for a virtual environment? Maybe we haven't changed enough from past years. What's our most recent feedback? How do we build on that? So really thinking through with hindsight bias, what went wrong before it actually happens, we're able to prevent the mortem from happening and have that summer that we imagined together.
Fabulous. Laura, thank you. Thank you to the entire panel. Jennifer, Chris, Laura, we appreciate your knowledge, your wisdom that you shared with us today. I know I'm richer as a result, and I'm sure folks on this line has gotten a lot out of this experience today. So we appreciate you very much. And I'll see you in another rectangular box, I'm sure somewhere down the road fairly soon. So I'll go ahead and turn it over to Aaron and we'll continue with the program.
Wow, thank you, Broderick. Thank you, Jennifer, Laura, and Chris. Just amazing information and leadership and guidance and inspiring examples you're setting for all of us and showing us what's possible at the state level, city level, and even at the program level that gets replicated across the country. So all of you are doing so much. We appreciate it. We're going to just pivot for a minute and we're going to just remind ourselves that what we're talking all about is the impact we could have through this work on real lives, real young people. And we have a young person who's joining us, Jacques. Let's see if I could see his photo here. Let me see it. He's here. Yep, there you are, Jacques Thompson. Jacques is a graduate of the Merit Health Scholars Program of Baltimore, one of the NSLA award-winning summer learning programs, and he's now a student at UPenn in Philadelphia, but he's also been selected as one of our first ever NSLA Congressional Summer Interns. We're going to be working with this summer and bringing him to DC for an all expense paid internship experience. One, to support him, and two, to hopefully influence some of the folks on Capitol Hill that he'll be working with but 3, to highlight the fact that unpaid internships are unfair internships and are unjust internships and are exclusionary to too many young people with great leadership skill and talent. And so, Jacques, we appreciate you taking on that responsibility, but we'd love to hear you, to turn over to you for a second, as we all prize youth voice and experience in our programs, and just hear your perspective on how your summer learning program made a difference in your life and what you think this internship could lead for you to as well. Jacques?
Hi, thank you for giving me a chance to tell my story. I was in merit from sophomore in my high school year until senior year. And I technically am an alumni of the program now. And essentially what the program was for me was an opportunity to look at Baltimore, my hometown, in a way that I'd never looked at it before. We looked at Merit's goal was to train people to be health professionals and alleviate health disparities, health inequalities, especially ones that are prevalent in black and brown neighborhoods, right? And so going in that program and working in those neighborhoods during the summer, and also working with doctors and other health professionals, gave me like a new perspective on like how to view these issues. So even though I'm not necessarily taking a lot of the technical skills that I learned about like human body and like medicine, I am taking that new perspective into what I hope to be my future in politics, which is why the internship with NSLA and C2C is like really beneficial for me, because I haven't really had an opportunity to work like with a politician in this capacity, and it's like, I guess I'm very excited for the opportunity to do so. So yeah, that's, I don't know if that's not deep enough, or that kind of.
No, it's great. Well, Jacques, look, we first of all, thank you so much, and thank you for being an example of what we're all trying to do, which is investing in young people so they can have all the opportunities and success you're pursuing right now. And you're amazing, and we look forward to welcoming you more deeply into the NSLA community and working with you this year and for years to come. So I appreciate this. I also just wanted to model for everyone else, if you're not talking to your students and getting their input and feedback and guidance about how to design the best program, we encourage you to do so. And again, we can help you do that. Jacques, I look forward to spending more time with you, but as we're just moving through today's session, we're gonna turn it over to Mashana Council, one of our National Summer Learning Association field consultants, who's going to moderate our next panel about how we bring more partnerships into our programs, and especially multi-sector ones, to give great experiences to our young people. Mashana?
Thank you, Aaron. I'm grateful for the time and the space. And Jacques, before you turn your video off, thank you. I think, as Aaron said, it is so important for us to be reminded not only about the young people that we have an opportunity and are called to serve, but the other young people who are out there, that the work that we do in our own communities benefits. As someone put in the chat, this is a village. And so we appreciate you representing our village. We're super excited to shift into the second half of our time today. I love seeing some of the comments and questions come in the chat that asked about, okay, but what are the resources? What are the additional tools? What's the planning guide that folks are using? How are you thinking about partnerships and the strategy around them? And so our panelists in the second portion of our day are going to share some of those specifics. We have some programs that also represent from the city level, from the school district, as an intermediary within the community. And so you will be able to hear directly from those folks about how they are approaching planning, how they approached it in 2020 when things shifted and we all know that we had to be responsive, and then how that is impacting what they are doing for this coming summer, but also specifically what are those strategic partnerships that they are really understanding to value differently perhaps than they did in previous summers. So excited to be here with you. I am from Atlanta, so shout out to the folks in the chat from the Metro Atlanta area. It's great to see you, and Broderick, to pass by you in the conference hall is always fun. I'm going to get started by introducing and bringing Gina here, who is from the National After School Association. And so have asked her to join and to really share her perspective as this national entity, but also just as a practitioner and the work that she has done previously in being able to be responsive in terms of partnerships and planning after a catastrophe. And so Gina, if you will join me here. Would love to just give you a moment to greet folks and give a word or two of wisdom from just your experience and some of the lessons that you've been able to capture through your work with NAA that may serve as some lessons learned for those of us who are getting ready for this summer ahead.
Thank you, Marshauna. I tried to start my video and it won't let me do it, but that's okay. Yeah, but that's okay. I mean, I did put on lipstick, which is a, you know, totally unique event, but that's okay, guys. Trust me. I did my hair and I put on lipstick, but thank you for the opportunity to talk. And I feel like, oh, okay, now I can start my video. There we go. So I was telling the truth. Thank you for this opportunity. I feel like I'm the speaker that's between everyone and like the lunch buffet. Not that we may ever have buffets again, but because there's so much great information that's coming and I'm just that little bridge in between. But my name is Gina Warner. I'm the president of the National After School Association. NAA, we are the professional member association for all of you who work in the field with and on behalf of young people, whether you're doing it during the school year, during the summer, or like many of you, doing it year round and doing both. And so we invite you to join us. We have some really aggressive plans for this year as we continue to advocate, you know, for our workforce and on behalf of our workforce. So we invite you to join us. I'll do just a brief commercial about some resources that we have that we've shared with this group. We do a weekly e-newsletter that is just chock full of information and resources to help you. Very timely. It comes to you every week. So we've really got something that's going to help you with what the challenges we think you have at that moment. And so that's coming every week. You can get that free as an ambassador member with NAA. We have just released the most recent issue of our After School Today magazine. And it is focused on race and equity. It is a powerful, powerful magazine. I encourage you to find it, download it, share it. It also features our next generation of after school leaders, 45 of them who are doing amazing things in their communities. So all around, it's just a powerful and inspiring issue. We just published, I know this link is in the resources you'll be getting for this event, a summer resource guide that again has a lot more resources and information for you all. There we go, I see it right there in the chat. And finally, if you're looking to build some one-on-one connections with colleagues as you prepare for summer, we do have a professional learning community focused on summer. We are hosting it in partnership with the Learning Agenda and focusing on the Summer Learning Toolkit that they created in partnership with the Wallace Foundation. The registration for that ends this Friday, so absolutely visit our site. I'll try and put it in the chat after I finish presenting here, but again, another great opportunity to connect and go a little bit deeper. Oh, there it is. And it's in the chat. Thank you all for that. So, you know, I actually was, I think, not invited here today, to Marshauna's point, to talk about the great resources we have at NAA. I think I was actually invited to talk about the value of the summer program can bring to children and families and community that are recovering or in recovery from catastrophe. Before I took this job at NAA, I was the citywide intermediary leader in the city of New Orleans. And I was in that role immediately after Hurricane Katrina. So some of you might be young, so young that you may kind of really don't remember because it's been about 15 years now. So Katrina hit at the end of the summer, right? You know, on August 29th to be exact. And so by the time the next summer rolled around, we were really, as a community, had been in just tremendous recovery, and we were by no means recovered, much like we are not recovered, you know, from the pandemic right now. But summer was our first and best opportunity to connect with young people and give them an experience that was similar to what they had known before, to give them a chance to be a kid, to connect with other kids. And that's kind of what I see this summer as too. So I'm here to kind of encourage you to think about this summer as your opportunity, and really the first and best opportunity I believe we've had since this pandemic started to really be with young people. You know, we're going to be asked to do some really basic and fundamental things, providing safe spaces, and those have to do with health and safety protocols. And we have to, you know, we're going to be providing good and healthy meals to our young people. We're going to be helping them with learning, and their learning has absolutely been disrupted. And we're going to be able to step in and support them in that way. But we're also going to be able to provide spaces for them to be kids, to play and connect with the other young people in ways that they have not been able to do. So I just want to encourage you to show up this summer, show up with your best self, take advantage of all these resources, but know that it's your kindness and that your compassion that are going to make the difference in how the children feel about themselves and how they feel about what they can do. And I want to be clear, that's not different than what we do every day in our work and after school and or in summer programs, but this summer is extra important. And just know that what you're doing and what you are bringing and bringing yourself to this work every single day is going to make a huge difference. So I just want to encourage you to think about it in that way. We sometimes say that a year is a long time in the life of a child. And I think about that when I think about what our children have been through this year, and we think about all we know about child and youth development, and think about how important this summer can be, and think about the important role that you can all play. So we're all here to support you and help you. And my other colleagues who are with us today have some amazing resources that are going to help you show up as the best professional you can be, and know that we're all behind you, supporting you as the best person that you can be. So thank you for letting me join today and just share a little bit of my story and just offer encouragement and appreciation to all of you.
Gina, thank you. And thank you for, I think the thing that we've understood in this time more than anything is how deep the village runs. And so as we have practitioners and frontliners who are doing exactly what you're encouraging folks to do, of showing up every day and holding that safe space, recognizing that there is a whole community that's holding safe space for them, right? So the weekly emails that you send, to the resources. I think one of the things that dawned on me probably too late in my youth development world was like, oh, someone already figured this out. Somebody already thought about where I could go to recruit staff or what funding opportunities exist within my community. And so again, I think in this time where we can feel so disconnected, it is important to recognize that we are connected deeply. And so the resources that you've shared, you as someone who has been in this world and in this work, is really important. So thank you for being here. I am going to ask that we will have some questions that may come a little bit later. So if you'll hang on for that. And one of the things that was referenced earlier, for those of you who are here in the first hour, we talked about RAND and some of the work that they have been doing to highlight some best practices around planning, around partnerships. And so we are joined today by two of the folks who work with the Pittsburgh, yep, you already knew I was about to brag on you, from the Pittsburgh School District, who is here to talk about their Dreamers program. It is a I won't steal all of their thunder, but it's a nationally recognized program now for the amazing work that they've done. And in addition to doing great work, they have put a lot of time into creating great resources that can be shared. And so we'll make space for them to do that today. So Christine and Melanie, thank you so much for joining us. I'll get out of the way.
Yeah, hello. Thanks for having us. It's always great to be among friends in whatever form or fashion that happens, and just to be around those summer learning folks who are so mindful of timelines and best practices and indicators of quality. I'm Christine Cray, Director of Student Services Reforms with Pittsburgh Public Schools, and I'm joined by Melanie Claxton, our district's coordinator for out of school time. And we are representing our district-run summer learning program. We traditionally serve a few thousand kids in the elementary grades every summer, and it's called Summer Dreamers. You can see a couple of pictures there on the slide that speak a bit to the program. It's a full day experience that's run by the district with lots of partnerships. And we focus on engaging instruction in math and reading in the morning, and interest-driven enrichment activities led by community-based organizations in the afternoon, and really promote a fun environment that is aimed to feel like summer camp, not summer school. So that includes pies to the face and dressing up like characters. We've been in operation since 2010, and so we've got some experience under our belts, what quality programming looks like and how to planfully achieve it in coordination with all of the players in the district and outside of the district that make summer happen. And so those years of experience have really worked to our benefit with all that happened to throw us for a loop in 2020. And as we navigate still some lingering uncertainties for summer 2021. And so Melanie's going to take it away to talk about our planning approach and how we've adjusted it for last year and are thinking about it for this coming summer.
Great, thank you, Christine. As she mentioned, I'm Melanie Claxton. I'm the coordinator of out of school time for the district. And I have the privilege of getting to oversee our Summer Dreamers Academy and our planning process for that. And so today I want to talk a little bit about kind of traditionally how we've operated, because that really does inform the way in which we have taken this approach to kind of summer 2020 and now the way that we're thinking about this upcoming summer. So next slide, please. And I know that we heard this in the other presentation, but summer really does start in September. And so I often get asked when do we start planning? And I kind of jokingly state, like, as soon as one summer ends, I'm already thinking about the next, and quite frankly, probably even before that. Because for us, it's just kind of this continuous process that we go through, but it's really informed by some kind of backward planning. So thinking about where we want to be on day one when we're engaging our students for the first time, as well as the type of experience we want them to have. So what are those activities that need to be in place to make sure that we can have that successful summer that we're dreaming of? And as you see in front of you, there are kind of a couple of big bucket areas, but really we always start with our budget. And so that's really going to inform the resources we have to be able to put forth for the summer. So that's kind of our guiding starting point. And then we move into some of those activities that take a little bit more time and intentional thought that are kind of the key components of our program. So as Christine mentioned, we focus on academics and math and ELA, and then also enrichment. And so those are kind of the starting points. So what does our staff look like to be able to implement that? And then also, what do our enrichment providers need to do to be able to be successful? And so in that kind of beginning period, we're really looking at putting out an RFP to solicit as many opportunities as we can for our students. And so this is where we really bring in some of those strong community-based partnerships. And I will note that this is kind of a timeline of where we start some of these items, but they kind of run through the gamut up until the planning for program. And so, in December and April is when we're starting to think about what does the curriculum need to look like, and then the accompanying training that goes with that, as well as how are we going to bring students into the program, to finally thinking about what are those more programmatic logistical things that we need to accomplish throughout summer, such as transportation coordination and family engagement. And so I know there was a question really quickly around like our planning team. My office right now consists of 2 with support from Christine. So we are a lean and mean team. But one of the things that has been really helpful for us as our team has gotten a little bit leaner is being able to have some of these foundational pieces in play. And so we'll talk a little bit about that in the next coming slides. So next slide, please. So that's kind of where we were in a traditional year. And if we know anything, we know that last year was not traditional, nor will this year be traditional. So while we started kind of how we normally would have, in March, everything kind of came to an halt. So we had to now realize that we had to be responsive to COVID and what would that mean for our students. And so we lost some time. But what I will say is, regardless of the time that we lost, there were a couple of things that were really important for us, which is continuing to make sure that we had a high quality opportunity for students, regardless of what that looked like. And for us, it really was focused on now having to move into this virtual space where we had never been before. So we had to be able to think about how do we pivot. And I will note that this is where one of our community-based partnerships really helped us be able to be successful in this space. And so we partner with our local United Way to contract with enrichment organizations, and their ability to be nimble and flexible in a way that a larger school district cannot be was really essential on this point. So next slide, please. But beyond this, we had to really rethink everything. So we have the foundational pieces. We know we still needed to focus on enrichment and staffing. We know we still needed to focus on curriculum. We know that we still wanted to really focus on family engagement. But what did that need to look like? So we had to reassess everything that had been done up until that point. And so thinking about what does our staffing structure need to look like now that we're in a virtual setting, because maybe we don't need some of the same roles, like we hire for security and nurses. So that role was not needed. So really thinking about our approach to that. Realizing that there's some activities that are not going to happen now. So we don't have to worry about transportation, but now the flip side to that is we need to make sure that every child has a device. And so as a district, unfortunately, we weren't a one-to-one district. So we really had to be thoughtful about how do we make sure that not only do students have devices, but that they have all of the resource and materials that they need to be able to fully engage in learning during this kind of virtual remote learning space. And so here you'll see a couple of the things that we're really thinking through, like how do we make sure that, this kind of virtual learning environment is really engaging and interactive in a way that, it's going to differ than what it would look like if we were in person and really able to be hands-on with students. But we didn't want to sacrifice any of the things that made us really successful. So even thinking about our family engagement component, we wanted to make sure that there was still a very intentional way that we were engaging our families, just the way in which we were doing it had to look different. And I think that was the key thing that when we started the planning process for summer 2020, we said, we know what Summer Dreamers is. Our goals really haven't changed. It's just going to be a difference in how we implement that. And so how do we make sure that we stay true to the core of what we do and supporting students in the way that they need to be serviced? but just, just the format is a bit different. And so even the cultural aspects, we were really intentional around making sure that that positive climate and culture really shined through everything that we did. And so that's kind of that was kind of our approach to summer 2020. And now we're in this space of like, how do we take everything that we've done prior to what we do in a traditional year, everything that we learned from summer 2020, and take that into what does summer 2021 need to look like? So next slide, please. And so this is kind of where we are. And as you see, the components are the same. The timeline has been completely adjusted. And so, going from a space of where we traditionally are starting in kind of that September space and have a really good sense of what we're doing, we're now truncating our timeline. But once again, I think the common theme for all of this for us was we don't want to compromise on what we know our students need and what we should be doing for them. We don't want to compromise on the quality of the work that we're doing. And so how do we make this happen? And I think this is where we continue to rely really heavy on some of those community-based partnerships. Earlier, I talked a little bit about a partnership that we have with the United Way. And to be quite frank, I don't know that we could bring in enrichment activities this summer in the way that we had if we didn't have that partnership in place this year. So those partnerships that we've already established were not just beneficial in that year, but they were really also really crucial for us in being able to move forward in this given year. The other thing that we wanted to be intentional about in this planning process too was that now that we have these additional resources, we didn't want to just build something because we could. We wanted to make sure that it was really informed by those we served. So a part of the way that we're looking at what our program model will look like as we continue to expand is we've been engaging not just our school-based staff in the planning process, but we've been engaging our students. So we've really been trying to figure out how do we make sure that we're building this with them, and not just for them. And so that has been, I think, one of the crucial pieces, because we can spend a lot of time and energy and resources putting this work together, but people may not show up if it's not something that was intentionally designed with their needs in mind. And so that's something that we're really thinking about in this space where we have a lot of resources, less planning time, is making sure that we really create something that they need, that they desire, but then also really relying on some of these community-based partnerships to move this forward. So next slide, please. And then I'll kind of end my portion here before I transition it over to Christine, is just say one of the things that we have learned through this entire time is to remain nimble and flexible. I spoke earlier about a traditional year. I'm going into my 4th summer with Summer Dreamers, and I don't know that I've had a traditional year yet. So we have always kind of had that mindset of having to be really nimble and flexible, but not compromising on what's core to what we do. And so for us, here, I just wanted to list just a couple of things that we continue to kind of think about as we move forward, regardless of what the structure of our year may entail. And so we're always really thinking about making sure we have the highest qualified individuals in front of our students as possible, because we know that that's how we can get really strong outcomes for them. We're thinking about what are some of those really hands-on engaging enrichment activities that we can offer, but how do we really leverage our community resources to complement the work that our academic teachers are doing in the morning. And then finally, because we do organize this at a central office level, we're thinking about who has that direct connection and relationship with our students, and how can we build upon that to really most effectively communicate with them. And so really, even just especially in this year, I think probably this year more than any, we have realized like those school-based relationships, those intentional relationships that have been developed over time are going to be crucial to us being successful this year. And I'll just kind of end my portion by saying that all of this is not necessarily us starting from scratch every year. We're really looking at what are those resources that we have accumulated over time, and how do we, not recreate the wheel, but build on what we've done and just adapt what we've done in years past. And so I'll transition it over to Christine, who'll talk about one of those resources in a bit more detail for you this afternoon.
Thank you. Next slide, please. Yeah, I'll bring it home with just sharing one very tangible resource that we've passed along to the NSLA team to share out to all of you. We call it our campsite planning template, and it really is designed like soup to nuts as a workbook for our leadership teams to think about everything that they need to think about: culture, operations, staff, engagement with families, to be incredibly planful. And I like the comment earlier about the floor for excellence in developing, their plans plans for the summer. And so the next slide will show you some of the questions that are asked as we think through what our program is going to look like. You know, what are your incentives going to be? And here's your budget for it. How are you going to monitor behavior? And here are the non-negotiables and expectations for how you'll do that from the central office and the school district team, but then add your own flavor and creativity in terms of supports for students. This is something that we iterate on every year. The version that was shared out was from 2019 because that was our last typical year. And we're already thinking about how we'll have probably a whole appendix for COVID specific scenario planning and whatnot. But it really allows us to capture best practices and iterate to build towards excellence every summer. Yeah, the next slide just shows you an example also about how we use this resource to convey and remind folks of resources and methods that we've got access to and information that they should be focused on. This is around parent engagement planning before camp. Here are all the things that we've learned through the years we need to share out with families. Here are all the ways that we can do it. And now let's figure out who's going to be responsible for the newsletter. Is it going to be printed or electronic? All of those details for sites to think through. So it's about 45 pages and hopefully it's a good tool if you're especially thinking about planning in a new space or a new program to really consider all of the details. And then we'll close out with just our favorite analogy for a recipe for a great summer as we think about this boot camp week. We've said this even before COVID and now more than ever. It's a combination of rolling with the punches and being flexible, for sure, a little bit of luck. And if you're a person of faith, it never hurts to throw a couple of prayers up for a successful summer with kids. So hopefully what we've shared has been useful. Again, the planning guide is passed along to NSLA to share out. And thank you all. We're excited.
Christine and Melanie, I appreciate folks don't see the behind the scenes where I was like, we got time. We have a few more folks, but I appreciate just the tacticalness of what you've shared. So I also want to just put a plug in for folks to remind you that you will get all of the resources, including this resource guide that has been shared. I think for those who are starting out, as Christine just said, it's a great opportunity to know what questions to ask. And for those of you who this is your 4th and 5th summer, just even thinking about what you have learned and how you can add to it. I also want to continue to put questions in the Q&A because Christine and Melanie can respond directly to them as well. So please continue to do that, as well as join us on Friday for those office hours if you have some specific needs. So I'm going to introduce now Mary, like Titanic, so that means it's Pernick, I think, who is with the Springboard Collaborative, have asked her to think about how to engage families. I loved hearing Christine and Melanie talk about that making time to find out what folks need is critical. And so Mary, if you will join me and just share with folks, again, your perspective around planning and more importantly, the strategic partnership around families and how you all are engaging them.
Sure. I don't think I've been upgraded to panelist, so I'm unable to start my video, but I am off mute, and maybe that's the universe telling me something about my appearance today. But I will continue if it's okay in this capacity. Good afternoon, everybody. Oh, here I go. All right. Hi. The universe has spoken and changed its mind. Nice to see all of you. I work for Springboard Collaborative, and we are a nonprofit, a national nonprofit that is typically a summer program only. But I decided to take a bit of a break from tradition for this particular conference and talk to you about lessons from the field from our after-school implementation during COVID, in the hopes that there might be some lessons of what to do and what not to do and ideas that can then be applied to summer programming. We are certainly thinking about that now. Next slide, please. A little bit about Springboard. Our goal is to help 100,000 students reach reading goals and 30,000 students read on grade level by 2023. And we do this utilizing a 3-pronged approach. We coach teachers in data-driven instruction to lead pre-K through 3rd graders towards reading growth goals. For context, we work with schools, we work with districts, public, charter. We also work with CBOs, Boys and Girls Club, Mission Grads on the West Coast, We worked with organizations like Teach for America, so pre-service teachers as well. So teachers or tutors. We train family members, this is the core of what we do, to be effective reading coaches for their children at home. And finally, we cultivate reading habits in young readers that persist over the long term in the classroom and at home. I will drop into the chat a link to our website shortly. Well, in fact, our resource website. Please use our materials, take them, steal them, borrow them, do what you would like, but we encourage and would love to spread our methodology and our ideas in any summer programs. Next slide, please. My name is Mary Peranick. I am the Senior Director of Program Design at Springboard Collaborative. Prior to that, I was a New York City public school teacher for 10 years. I taught 5th grade in the Bronx, and then a literacy coach for 2 years, also in the Bronx. I worked for Springboard part-time, and I loved it, so I joined on. Continue. Next slide. So my presentation will be short and sweet and very direct. I could go on forever about Springboard, but I am hoping to have some, again, just to share some learnings from a partnership, a big partnership we have going on right now that could be applied to your summer program. So we're here to learn how Springboard has engaged families in particular in OST programming during COVID-19. And we're also here to discuss learnings or implications for summer in your setting. Short and sweet. Next slide, please. So we're gonna I'm gonna walk you through a case study. I'm gonna talk to you about our work in Massachusetts in particular. It's pretty nuanced and complex. So as you know, learning loss is something that's being discussed. It's a controversial term to begin with, but it's being discussed by most people all around the country, educators, after school, summer programs, and so on. Massachusetts in particular offered a emergency relief package that our organization applied for and won. And so over a 2-year partnership, we have to serve a lot of kids. But before June, we found out in December that before June, we had to serve 1,500 children in the Massachusetts school district. So had to get to work really, really quickly. And all of you here know what it takes to pull off any type of OST programming, let alone in that time constraint, let alone pitching to districts and then working with unions and then working with COVID and families and so on. So I'm gonna delve into a few things that we did and lessons learned that have helped us to be successful thus far. We partnered with 4 separate districts with very strong teachers unions. This is important because it impacted our planning. 32 schools in total. And a little context here. In general, districts are pushing for in-person instruction. We have small group tutoring instruction. And many teachers and families are not ready, but many are, right? So there's conflicts of interest happening, and all in the midst of it, the state of Massachusetts is providing Springboard with this funding to get it done and wants to see the KPIs, right? Okay, so this is the context. And so let's move to the next slide and talk about some of the things that we had to deal with. So here are the problem, right? There should be an S in paren there. The biggest thing that we want to do as an organization is to mitigate reading learning loss in general, but in particular, this funding is to mitigate learning loss and reading in particular since March. We also want to ensure equity and access for students and families. We want all students and families to be able to access our materials, our programs, our resources, so on. And then we also simultaneously need to, well, first of all, those first 2 things sound pretty good, right? Like all stakeholders would normally be really invested in attacking these 2 things, maybe have difference in opinions in how to best do it. But it's been a bit more complicated now. So we had to support all stakeholders in this initiative. So students first, families, districts, unions, teachers, tutors, and paraprofessionals, I should add also, we work with pre-service teachers. We've partnered pre-service teachers and brought them into the tutoring sphere. And then DESE, and DESE is the state education body of Massachusetts. So there's a lot of competing commitments here, a lot of problems that we need to solve. How are we going to do it? Let's turn to the next slide. So I'm going to talk about 3 ways that we were able to, given the uncertain circumstances and given the varying needs of different stakeholders, the different ways that we have been able to support and accomplish our goals here. So if the problem is to mitigate reading learning loss since March, here's what we did internally since March. We transferred all of our instructional materials to be able to be delivered virtually, including our research-based phonics program. For pre-K scholars, there are 25 really highly interactive lessons with really, really thorough facilitator guide notes beneath them that are interactive and that help pre-K kids recognize letters and phonemic awareness. For our K through 2 kids, we utilize iBird's methodology. You can see a particular lesson here. Introduce the sounds, blend sounds, read sight words, decode sentences, and spell words. And so teachers can work through this. Multisyllabic decoding instruction for a 3rd grader. So we're in the weeds, right? Like we were talking about heavy duty phonics instruction. We pivoted and all of our materials are available and teachers can utilize them. Everything is accessible online. Let's go to the next slide. Okay, virtual family outreach. I'm gonna talk a little bit here. Remember, this is the problem of ensuring equity and access for all students and families. Springboard Collaborative, you know, gave themselves a lot, and I'm a part of it. I shouldn't say they, I am part of Springboard. Lots of pats on the back because all of our materials are in English and Spanish. We translated all of our flyers, all of our enrollment links, which are down there below, clickable for parents to get enrolled in programming. We push it out through Dojo. We push it out this way. We push it out that way. English and Spanish, wonderful. What happens when a specific district has 8 prominent languages, neither of which are Spanish, or none of which are Spanish, or English actually? We rely heavily on partnerships with districts and schools. Because this was a government funded program, schools were able, luckily, to free up some resources for translations. We leaned on the culture of the district. We leaned on the people who work within the district, and we were also able to provide stipends and hourly rates along with union contract guidelines to ensure that materials were translated or that translators were available on call to help families get enrolled. They are also involved in other aspects of our programming, our family engagement programming, including a huddle, which starts our program, and then the family workshops will be translated as well. So here, it took a village, and this is going on right now. Next slide, please. Finally, this is a sample schedule from a teacher, a program leader. One of the things that Springboard does is that we train the trainer. We really believe in distributive leadership. And so when we partner with a school, there's a site leader from within that school. And this is an example of one school in one district that decided to go hybrid. And here it's a very simple schedule, but I just thought it was like a really powerful example of how a school entity made a decision that we empowered them to do so. They have, each teacher sees 3 groups of kids, hence cohort A, B, and C. The cohort A and B kids are in person. The cohort C kids are not. And so what this does is it enables the cohort A and B kids to stay for their after school session, go home, then the teacher stays in the classroom and is able to service their virtual kids. Seems like a simple solution. It really wasn't. And I just wanted to highlight this, this example from one of our teachers as how she was able to plan to be flexible in this. I'm going to drop a few things into the chat, including a survey if you would like to learn more about Springboard. So thank you so much.
No, Mary, thank you so much. I think it's just so important that you talked about the importance of parents as one of those key stakeholders and how you all are doing it. So please get contact information, follow up with Mary specifically. Know that at 3, we have a congressional briefing that we're hoping folks are going to join, because one of the things that you said, Mary, that was really important that came up to me was this notion of knowing what decisions are being made by your school districts, for your state, like where is the funding going? Who do you need to strategically partner with in order to be able to leverage the funding as an enrichment program, as an out of school time provider. So we do hope you will join us in that as well. At this time, I'm gonna ask Dawn Hill, hopefully you can share your video, who is from Charlotte, North Carolina, and is gonna share a little bit about a youth employment program that they did. Again, another example of a very strategic partnership, but we talked a little bit, heard a little bit earlier of what do we do for young people? How do we make sure that that population also gets their needs met? So Dawn, thank you, welcome. And the floor is yours.
Cool. There you go. Okay, there you go. Yep, I was muted. So thank you so much. I'm going to try to do this. I am not very technically savvy, and usually I can't walk and chew gum and breathe at the same time, but we'll try.
If you just talk, we'll click along as you talk. Don't worry, you got it.
It's very challenging to click along with me on these slides, because some of them are kind of landing in the mid slide like area, but we'll give it a try. How about that?
And we'll also make sure we send this out to folks. So if it doesn't, then again, what you say is most important.
Okay, wonderful. Well, good afternoon, everyone. Again, I'm Dawn Hill, and I manage youth programs and business partnerships for the city of Charlotte. I have oversight of the Mayor's Youth Employment Program, job and career readiness training, and job fairs. And I am delighted to be able to share our program with you today. The lion's share of what I do in Charlotte is manage the Mayor's Youth Employment Program, or the MYEP for short, the MYEP for short. The MYEP, the MYEP, is one of the largest internship programs in the region of North Carolina. And I've been working for the city for 19 years, and 16 of those 19 years has been spent managing the MYEP. This year, we're celebrating our 35th anniversary, of providing workforce and economic opportunities for thousands and thousands of youth. So we have a great deal to celebrate this year. Last April, when as a result of COVID-19, when the MYEP and Radius and LinkedIn Learning and Charlotte Mecklenburg school districts, when we got together, we had 2.5 months, 2.5 months to lift up a 5-week virtual internship program. And that's what I want to share with you guys today. The first thing I want to share, next slide, please. The first thing that I want to share is that we didn't land in that place by ourselves. We were already kind of taken aback with what was happening across the nation in terms of the pandemic in February. And we knew that we needed to get out ahead of this and start thinking about doing some virtual opportunities. And when we did that, we reached out to our good old buddies at our school district, and we asked them to continue to partner with us to provide some virtual opportunities. We also met an organization called Radius Learning, and we coupled Radius Learning with LinkedIn Learning, and we came up with a good formula for Charlotte for pivoting from our traditional internships to our virtual internships. So today, what I'm going to do is share with you just an introduction to those virtual pathways that we offered last summer. I'm going to share some of the outcomes and a little bit about our program partners. And then I'm going to share at the end some feedback that we got from the students, from our participants. Next slide, please. So, let's start with the pathways. When we developed the virtual pathways as a result of COVID-19, all of our internships prior to that were traditional, in-person, and on-site. But we knew that we did not want our virtual internships to be a sit and get. What I mean by that is that we really did not want our students just sitting before a screen. We wanted to make them very interactive and very much, according to the industries that turn our local economy. We wanted our students to have knowledge about these industries. And so to do that, we reached out to the business community in a big way. And, before the pandemic hit, Charlotte had 106 businesses who were poised to offer paid internships, in-person internships. And after in March, that dropped to 14. And so the way that we engaged our businesses, rather than, some of them were not comfortable with students coming on their campus and being in person. And so what we did with those businesses that weren't comfortable, we asked them to sponsor other interns. We asked them to sponsor virtual internships. We wanted everybody to have a chance to participate and support us. And we gave them a menu of ways to do that. The other thing that we did was we asked them to serve as master industry leaders and lead these classes that our students were actually partaking in, to help them to go a little bit deeper in the internship process. We asked them also to provide us with SMEs or subject matter experts as well, who could lead different topics every week and talk with them about going deeper in that particular industry and give them a day in the life as well. Last year, through our virtual pathways, we offered 5 simulated jobs in demand with industry leaders across Charlotte's major sectors. And the pathways served as a bridge between the top employers and our youth in the region. We had 361 youth offered virtual pathways. We had 291 that completed over 29,000 hours and earned certificates of completions. And they did not do that big feat on their own. I'll explain a little bit later how they were able to stay on task and accomplish that lofty goal. Collectively, these students earned over $400,000 and they engaged with over 50 plus professionals such as engineers and healthcare professionals and others. All in all, we had 18 major companies like Bank of America, Sealed Air, Accenture, and others who really assisted us with everything from creating the pathway materials to giving virtual tours and more. Next slide, please. The Mayor's Youth Employment Program offered real-world work scenarios for each pathway. We did not want to have our virtual work-based learning opportunities be an extension of the school day. It was nothing like school. It was 100% like work. For example, for the Siemens Advanced Manufacturing Pathway, 36 youth had to design infrastructure solutions to reduce carbon emissions. With the Bank of America's Business and Finance Pathway, 75 youth had to design technologies with Bank of America to help residents affected by wage loss. And during the Accenture Technology Pathway, 74 youth designed platforms to support small businesses. And lastly, for both Sealed Air Innovation and Atrium Healthcare Pathways, we had 100 youth develop sustainable innovations to support Charlotte's 2040 Vision Plan and work on digital solutions to expand healthcare access with local healthcare providers. So we're grateful with our business giants who showed up to help us in a magnificent way to provide our youth with quality jobs in demand. Next slide, please. Can you advance it a little bit? One more slide. Thank you. So the chart that's on the screen right now represents the hours that youth completed in the virtual pathways. Amongst the most notable are the 54 hours of work-based learning tasks. And so those hours were filled in particular with that exposure to the businesses and the different industries. We also had 18.5 hours of professional development and 12.5 in skills development. And so rounding out to the 100 hours youth had to complete over a 5-week period, they had those hours of career experiences over the summer. Our youth were also exposed. Can you scroll up just a little bit, please? back down is kind of in between. So our youth were also exposed to 5 learning tools, and they included Microsoft Excel, Power BI, Canva, Google Drive, and Figma. Scroll one more time, please. And again. Yep, once more. This is our brand wall. With our brand wall, what I wanted to bring your attention to, if you'll scroll back once, with our brand wall, what I wanted to bring your attention to is all of the businesses who were on point to help us. To have Atrium Healthcare give us a tour of their healthcare facility. Some of the doctors that were there were also performing different procedures that students could actually go right into that procedure with them. They just had excellent opportunities. And again, they would normally be doing all of this in person, but to have all of the subject matter experts and the business partners to provide us with this kind of exposure for our youth in a virtual environment was unheard of, and all within 2.5 months of preparation. Next slide, please. And if you'll advance once more. Thank you. So when I spoke earlier about the students having a little bit of help, this is the help that they had. For those of you who operate summer youth employment programs, if you are not partnering with your local school districts, you're really missing out. We partnered with our district, and they provided us with 20, not one, but 20 monitors over the summer. So they were, those monitors were serving to help us to provide technical assistance, provide administrative assistance for our students over the summer as well. So we really have to say kudos to our Charlotte-Mecklenburg school system, our district, for helping us to do that. Next slide, please. For the Mayor's Youth Employment Program, we are a majority minority program where our program, our students look a lot like our city. We are, we are a very, very diverse program. And so, one of the things that we pride ourselves in is that we are in every Title I, every focus area, every priority school. And for that, we're very proud. And lastly, next slide, please. I'd like to share a few sentiments from our participants who participated over the summer. They actually rated us an 8.7 out of 10 in terms of our overall program. And just to hear students say that completing the pathway program helped them to especially know that they could do it, that they have real world application and they have the skills. Another student shared that before they did this program, they didn't believe that they could accomplish anything, but now they're more confident that they can accomplish anything that they set their mind to in life. And isn't that what it's all about? Isn't that why we do this? And so we're very thankful for their participation. We're very thankful for our business partners, for our school district, for Radius Learning, for completing and developing those pathways for us. And thank you very much also for listening. And I'll be around if you have any questions about how Charlotte was able to lift up this virtual program in 2.5 months.
Yeah, I was going to say 2.5 months, community partnership. I mean, all of the pieces that we've talked about all day. So Dawn, thank you for being able to show us a really clear example of how everyone can come together to make it work. I'm going to turn it over. So continue to put questions in the Q&A. Again, a plug for Friday. Aaron, let them know that they need to come Friday because there's more getting to get. So I'll turn it over to you to close it.
Mashana, thank you. Thank you to all our panelists. You shared amazing work, inspiring efforts, and so many resources. We can't thank you enough. And we have to jump off now because we're inviting everyone to join our next session with 2 United States senators to talk about how we could get more federal funding to support all the programs we're discussing. But let us just remind ourselves, one, we have another event tomorrow. We're going to be talking about social emotional learning and culturally responsive practices with great examples and resources. And then on Friday, we have all our field consultants who you've been hearing about are making themselves available to have more conversations with all of you to talk with one another and ask your questions. Thank you again to the Mott Foundation, to Gina Warner, and National After School Association, Every Hour Counts, for sponsoring today. And I'm going to invite everyone to log off and to join us on our next session. But if you have more questions, everyone is here to follow up, and we will continue this great work tomorrow. Thanks, everyone.